Old Lincoln Riley, the more he tries to bury his shadiness and distance himself from Oklahoma, the more he keeps getting dug up. Old elf face with the jackass grin can't bury his shadiness quick enough. Let's talk about it. Well, how's it going out today, boys and girls in sporting land? I'm JPC. I am the OCF. That's the outlaw of college football, and this is the home of the common Joe and the common side of the know, even more so than all those media talking heads. All right, now getting right to it. Today I want to jump in here real quick because I went back and I saw a video about one Nik Bonitto, who is a former linebacker now for the University of Oklahoma. It seems like the University of Oklahoma has a lot of interesting news these days. I've been having to do a lot of work on the University of Oklahoma ever since, and it comes back to the genesis of it all, and that is that sly, cunning Lincoln Riley. Ever since Lincoln Riley slithered out of town on his belly like an old snake, shit just keeps percolating up, coming up. Things are being said. Interesting little caveats and stories keep popping up. Well, this Nik Bonitto guy, who really has no reason to make up anything, he has no axe to grind. He's in the NFL draft this year. He's no longer going to be playing for Oklahoma, and he won't be transferring to USC to play for Lincoln Riley, so he has really no dog in the fight other than to take up for his alma mater, that being the University of Oklahoma. Well, like I said, whole Lincoln Riley stories just keep popping up. Like I said, I wouldn't have took much credence to this because you see all these rumors all the time, but Nik Bonitto actually called out two things. First thing he called out was players that are leaving the University of Oklahoma. He basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, that a lot of the former Oklahoma players are not really former players, but players that were playing for Oklahoma that are thinking about transferring to USC have been talking badly about Lincoln Riley when he first left, but now that he's offering them possibility of coming to USC, now all of a sudden they're all about some Lincoln Riley. Basically called them sellouts and said that, the University of Oklahoma really doesn't need you. If that's what you want to do, if you want to leave, the tradition and the prowess of the Oklahoma program is big enough to where it can do without a couple of sellouts. Most notably, Caleb Williams. But we won't go into Caleb. But Nik Bonitto, the second thing he said that really caught my attention was that, and you hear this all the time too from fans, all the conspiracy theorists out there that when a coach leaves, maybe they weren't trying very hard, or they maybe tried to deep six the season or some crazy stuff like that. Or the referees fixed the game, yada, 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 all that good stuff. Well, Nik Bonitto said something sort of like that. He said that Lincoln Riley really wasn't putting his best foot forward for a very long time in this past season. Not at the beginning, but probably towards the end of September, that Lincoln Riley knew that USC was going to get rid of their coach, and he knew he was going to get the job at USC, so he didn't just deep six the program, but he didn't really put his best foot forward. And you're like, well, why would he do that? Why would USC want him at that point if he has a bad season? But just hold on for a second and hear me out on this. If he don't put his best foot forward, but don't go over the top with it and be obvious that he's deep sixing something, then they have an average to subpar year, maybe lose 2 or 3 games, which is what they did. I think maybe he wanted to see Oklahoma finish around 8-4, but in spite of him, I think those players won some games in spite of Lincoln Riley's very lackadaisical effort in being a head coach for the rest of this past season. And they ended up winning, I think it was 10 or 11 games this year. I think they went 11-2 in spite of Lincoln Riley, which says a lot about those players. So Nik Bonitto basically claims that Lincoln Riley really didn't try to do Oklahoma any favors, in hopes that they will have a not so great season, not make the playoffs, and maybe some of these players would come with him to Oklahoma, is basically what Nik Bonitto is saying. And that brings me back to something I've talked about before, is they need to have some kind of legislation for all this NIL and all this transfer portal crap that they're doing these days. And they're going to have to do away with the NCAA in order to do that, in my opinion. They're going to have to come up with a new governing body. And that new governing body also, I think, needs to sit down with the brain trust at the NFL and get with them on how to handle and tampering. Now, tampering's not, there's no rules or anything, or used to not be anything that applied to college football. But now with all this NIL crap and players entering the transfer portal when coaches like Lincoln Riley just up and leave, and then they tried to poach a whole team from a university, that stuff's got to stop. That's very shady, and it's just not good sportsmanship, in my opinion. So whatever governing body they come up with to replace the NCAA, sit down with the NFL, get the legal lingo in place, and figure out what you can do to stop this tampering and have some kind of trade rules in place. Whereas, we don't really have trading in college football, but the transfer portal is sort of like trades in the NFL. Have some kind of legislation in place. Now, I don't know what kind of legislation that we could throw out there right now. I'm not that smart of a guy, but there needs to be some kind of legislation put in place to mediate these NIL deals and this transfer portal crap. And that's all I got to say about that. You guys and gals tell me what you think about this matter. Do you think Lincoln Riley was not really putting his best foot forward and maybe didn't try to do Oklahoma any favors in hopes of getting some of their players to go to Los Angeles with him? Or do you think I'm way off base and this is just sort of a reach by Nik Bonitto? And with that, I'm going to get off of here. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to this channel. And as always, KMCA to all the other teams.